Welcome to another exciting episode of the Late Night Hour, broadcasting from our secret, undisclosed, underground bunker location. The voice of freedom, and a warm welcome to you. Here on the Late Night Hour, we explore the topics not found on television.
You're listening to the Late Night Hour.
And so today, I was at the grocery store and I purchased some groceries. And when I got to the checkout counter, the man said, "You've saved $9.50 today." I say to myself, you probably ripped me off because many of these consumer packaged goods are half the size they used to be. But then I gave it some deeper thought, and I was trying to figure out how I had actually saved $9.50. And then it occurred to me I had used against my better judgment, I had used my grocery store loyalty card. As if I'm not a loyal customer, I have to have a loyalty card to recognize myself as a loyal customer. In reality, these grocery stores sort of have like area monopolies, so you can't really go to another grocery store unless you want to drive across town or some other location, and that costs you $4 per gallon of gas, roughly. I know some places it's cheaper than $4 per gallon, but the point being that if I drove 1 mile away to a different grocery store, then it would have cost me $4 each direction. So my $9.50 would have been $8 less. The point is, it's so nice when they tell you, "Thank you for being a loyal customer to our grocery monopoly. You saved $9.50 today." Meaning that if you didn't have the loyalty card, then you would have been ripped off $9.50. That's the brave new world we live in, these groceries and these loyalty cards. Now, here's what happens when you use your loyalty card. You're sitting around with your small groceries, whether that be milk, bread. In fact, I think the eggs are getting smaller too now. I don't know if they have smaller chickens, but everything's like smaller because they don't want to tell the public that we're in like this terrible inflation where the rich get richer and the poor poorer. That means you have little tiny eggs. I don't even know how they find little tiny chickens, but that's the whole point. Is everything is beautiful. Keep shopping, even though your groceries are turning into miniature groceries. Yesterday I talked about the bag of chips being half filled. And so we think we live in this utopia, but really we live in this miniaturization. That's almost like a smaller scale model of reality where everything's shrinking. Okay. So let me get to the point. I'm sitting around and I'm eating my small groceries. All of a sudden, there's a knock at the door. And you know what they say? They say, "Hey, I'm with the city, state, county, I don't remember which. And guess what? You need to buy a pet license." I say to myself, wow, do you have like cameras inside my house where you're spying on me? I mean, how do you know I need this pet license? Well, it turns out that, can you guess? Is anybody out there listening tonight that can actually guess this one? How did the city, state, or county, how did the man know I needed a pet license? Okay, I don't see a call coming in. I don't see anybody in the chat room to answer this. So let me help you. Let me enlighten you. I bought a can of cat food. Now, for all the city, state, or county knows, I could be eating that cat food, enjoying it because maybe the cat food didn't shrink. Maybe it's the regular size. So I could have been enjoying my cat food, and that's something that a person might do. People are into all this weird stuff, so maybe there's a cat food eater. How would they know I had a cat? Because that disloyal grocery store used my loyalty information as a loyal customer, sold the information to the city, state, or county to give them a psychological profile that I, either enjoy eating cat food or I have a cat. And then they cross-reference that to some other database that shows I don't have a pet license. So then I get the knock at the door. Am I happy about the grocery store selling my loyalty information to the city, state, or county? No, I am not. And now I am a disloyal customer. Why am I telling you this long, terrible tragedy? Because you need to watch out for what you're buying on that loyalty card. These microcontrollers are after you, and they want your tax money, whether it be a pet license, a car tab, a license plate, a bike license. You used to be able to ride like a small engine moped without a license, but no, everything's licensed now. You have to have a license to what? Cut hair? I'm surprised landscapers aren't licensed yet. I don't want to give them any ideas. Anyway, remember what you learned on this show. You might be a loyal customer, but those grocery stores are disloyal traders to America, turning your information over to the state to come and knock on your door. What's next? You didn't get your flu shot? You didn't buy the low wattage light bulbs? What else are they going to analyze from your shopping data? Now, you learned this yesterday. What do you do when you have a loyalty card? You give them a bunch of bogus information. They want to play games? You have to play the game. Never give the loyalty people your real information that they can then cross-reference to your credit card number. This gets back to maybe we need to keep cash and go to the cash society. Why should we have this cashless society everybody wants? Well, at least the elite want that. Why don't we just stay with the cash society? And then we don't have this problem of cross-referencing credit cards and loyalty card numbers. It's like every store you go wants to give you a loyalty card, and they're all disloyal. I should say that. There's probably some good consumer stores still not giving up that information to the state, to the system, to micromanage you. I'm going to have to come up with all kinds of scenarios. If you eat peanut butter and jam, you might be a Christian. Well, we could continue along this path, but I'd probably get myself into trouble. Do I sound cynical? Yes, I do. That's what we are here on the Late Night Hour. I tell you what's important in the news. You kick back, you listen, come into the chat room, and you ask questions. Our primary tool is Blog Talk Radio, and that's where our chat room is located. But you can also just go to our website, thelatenighthour.com, and it'll take you to every place you need to go. Also, it would be nice if you followed our show by submitting your email address so that we can create our own private loyalty mailing list. I guarantee to you that I do not share this information with anybody out there. And I don't put it on one server. I certainly don't keep the information in the cloud. You've got to be a total idiot to use the cloud, any cloud, the Google cloud, the Apple cloud. put your best invention ideas up there on the cloud. Yeah, right. Don't put anything of any value, including ideas, patentable ideas, book ideas. Don't put any information up there on the cloud. They're looking for your intellectual property to steal it. And we could go into more depth about the whole patent system and how it's fed between the United States over to the UK and who knows where else. But the elite are all after your intellectual knowledge and ideas. And so we're starting to see this when the engineers at Google are revolting because they're building a censorship search engine for China. So, I mean, these elitist CEOs will sell anything to anybody. That was proven with the Bush family, and they were selling, I believe, goods and fuel to Hitler, to the Nazis. But the Bush family wasn't the only family involved. You had the Fords, and you had many others out of New York City who were funding the Nazis. And they're the first to stand up and say, you're anti-Semitic if you say anything about the Jews. Well, you're anti-Semitic for funding Hitler. So how you like that? Sorry, you've got me going on all these tangents. On a beautiful Saturday evening, I should be relaxed. Let me see. Let me find my beverage. It's not good. I'm being cut back on my beverages by my doctor's advice. I have to consume only certain types of beverages now. It's not nearly as much fun as it's been in the past. But a beverage is a beverage. I have to enjoy what I do have. I'll be back in just a minute. I got to get warmed up here and see what's breaking in the news. You're listening to the Late Night Hour. And if you're new to our show, I'll explain things when I come back in just a minute.
She walks into a winter day. Walks into a midnight haze. She will follow you. She will follow you. She will follow you. She will follow along you.
You're listening to The Late Night Hour with Alex Abrams.
Well, for some people it is getting late, but for me it's early. I just woke up, just got out of bed. You can probably tell I'm riled up, ready to go, upset about this grocery store and the loyalty cards. So here on the Late Night Hour, if you're new, what we do here is we search all our special web sources, and if we see anything important, we let you know about it. So you're going to want to check our show, because if I tell you it's time to grab the most you can out of the ATM and head for the woods, head for the forest, the mountains, the caves, you're going to want to keep in contact with our show, because that's what I've committed to do, to monitor all the chatter on the net and help you if there is some kind of important alert that pops up. We would definitely share that information with you. Now, tonight I'm happy to report it's been pretty quiet, pretty mellow. Shout out to Hawaii. Category storm was reduced. Everybody seems to be recovered. The rains have succeeded. And so it's all good. And so, yes, a shout out to my cousins in Hawaii, and hang loose and hope everything turns out okay for you and your families. And so, getting back to our show, please give me a call. I'd love to hear from you if you have the nerve to call in. Our number is 515-602-9663. I take any and all questions, and we like to share theories here at the late night hour. It's a perfect hour for theories, predictions, secrets, and you're going to get my interesting spin on politics and current events, which may conflict with your indoctrination through the public education system. So you're going to want to relax and chill a bit. I don't want to send you over the cliff because you have a meltdown when you realize the entire system is fake. But don't take my word for it. You got to do your own research. You got to check things out. I give you a little hints. I'm just telling you my opinion and viewpoint. Last time I checked, it's still legal to provide that. I know they want to call that fake news. Fake news, except for the corporate mainstream news. They're like the greatest. They're the fabulous news providers, even though they're all part of the military-industrial media complex called propaganda. Don't let them convince you that everything's beautiful. You live in Disneyland. Everything's perfect. There's a job for everyone. If you don't want to do the jobs, we need the immigrants to come in to do the jobs that Americans don't want to do. It's a beautiful story. I think Clinton was weaving that story. Bill Clinton, really. I mean, you picture him in a car lot. I mean, would you buy even, the greatest deal in the world? Would you buy that from Clinton? He sure suckered a lot of people in as the Clinton and the Bush crime families passed NAFTA and sent all our good jobs out of here. Detroit was completely annihilated by NAFTA. All the car manufacturers have all their parts being manufactured to a large extent in Mexico, still paying slave wages, slave-level wages. And every day a line of 18-wheelers come over the border with those parts so they can say, assembled in the U.S. of A., just manufactured in China, Mexico, and every place else. We can't pick on the car industry. We have to also pick on the iPhones made in China at the suicide factories. And I think the iPhone is still probably the greatest invention, I think, of our time. Smartphones in general, but that still doesn't release us from the liability, the moral destitute of manufacturing in a slave labor country. We have a brave caller on line one. Let's see if we can bring them on here. Hello, are you there?
Yes, this is Ed from Detroit, Michigan calling in. Thanks for taking my call.
Oh, you bet, Ed. How you doing tonight?
Well, good. First off, what you were just talking about, it is certainly true. I read about, I believe it was the Foxconn, that actually some of the employees over there were jumping off the building. They had to put nets, committing suicide, that were in these factories over in China, pretty much slave labor, that were building the iPhones and the tablets and whatnot. I mean, some people might be like, oh, here's another conspiracy theorist, or, here's another far right winger. But no, it's true. You look up, I believe it's Foxconn, if I'm not mistaken. I read about it, I think, back in 2014.
Right. Well, I don't think Apple's even come out and denied it. I mean, they haven't come out and said it's not true. I mean, you had the same thing, though, with Nike and soccer balls and clothing and shoes in Indonesia and stuff, and slave labor. Actually, a lot of this stuff around the world is child labor. So that's even another hot topic, But I think at some point, I think as a loyal American, you have to say, okay, look, I'll pay the extra $100 or $200 for the iPhone if you just pay people at a decent level. So, but we know where those profits go, right? They don't go to the employees of Apple. They go to the top 1% or something. So,
well, correct. Sorry, sure.
Go ahead.
I was just going to
Yeah.
say, like, one thing. I mean, not to get into politics of, but when Trump talked about being from Detroit with the Ford Motor Company was one example he gave. Is a lot of us in Detroit here, in Michigan, from Flint to Detroit, we're tired of it. And it was the big three, where a lot of car production was going to Mexico for cheaper labor rates and to get around regulation costs and all that. But then in return, in order for the head people of Ford and GM and Chrysler to make money, they got to ship them back in the U.S. and sell them to the people. And they say, oh, well, you got to buy America, support the big three. Well, I'm like, where is the people benefiting it other than the top 1% of the big three? I don't see
Exactly.
Where, for example, as much as someone would say, and I've argued with people in Detroit on this, like, oh, Honda's Japanese. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Some of those Hondas are being made in Ohio. At least you're supporting American labor if you buy a Honda. And I think it's Toyota or Nissan they got some car plants down south.
Right.
So
right. Yeah, it's very misleading because it's really like for that car, and let's not stay with cars. Airplanes is another big example. How much of it is make buy? How much are you making in the U.S., whether it be the final assembly or the components? And what's the percent you're getting globally? That's really the number you're looking for. And, it'd be nice if they actually marked the products and said, this one is 50% made here, because then that would solve it, right? People wouldn't be buying this stuff because it's like they understand the repercussions. So it's all hidden. And Ford has a very dubious history if you get into the Ford plants and the Nazis and all this other stuff that they've been involved in the Ford Foundation. So, it doesn't surprise you that, we're picking on Ford, but some of the other ones are involved also. So, yes. But if you look at the actual statistics, most of this happened. You know when most of this all happened? When the wheels came off the wagon? NAFTA.
I believe I read a great book, Collision Course, on the GM perspective of when a lot of this happened, but I believe it was in the 70s, the 1970s, when a lot of labor.
Right. Yep, and that's NAFTA. That's the timing for NAFTA. And that's when they open the floodgates and they just let all these companies just move it all out of here with no repercussions whatsoever, So I guess Trump's working on NAFTA too, but I don't know enough about it. I just know that we do need to focus on finding those products. I wish somebody would start a website and say these are the ones that are built here, regardless what the brand is, right? Just like you're saying, Honda's, whatever it is.
And to be fair politically, I did like when President Obama brought up about let's not lose focus of Main Street when we talk how the Dow Jones and the S&P 500 and NASDAQ are doing on Wall Street. Let's not lose focus of Main Street, the blue-collar jobs, making that paycheck to pay their bills, take care of their kids and whatnot, and that's where some of that resonates. And you brought up the airplanes. One thing that Trump did I like was he did meet with, I believe it was Lockheed Martin, a plant in Texas, where they were going to send the production of some jets over to India that were being sold across Europe and the Middle East, but then he was able to keep the jobs in Texas.
Yes.
But if I can pick your brain real quick, I haven't heard much about this on the news, but it's something that I noticed with clothing particularly. Back in the late 90s and early 2000s, I've got some nice dress shirts and slacks and whatnot and suits. Like one name I can think of right now was like Perry Ellis. But a lot of them were made in South Korea, like in the early 2000s and 90s. But lately, when I've been like at JCPenney's and some of the other stores there, and I've ordered online, a lot of it seems to be getting made now like in Sri Lanka, Indonesia, whatnot. Is that another example?
Well, they're just moving to wherever the cheapest labor is. The problem is oftentimes it involves some kind of employee abuse or child labor or something going on. They're just so greedy, You're correct. There's a lot made in, say, Malaysia. You'll see that a lot. Indonesia, different countries. But they'll move. If they can save a nickel, they're going to move. And, we also have a problem at the corporate board level because they could control this. They could say, okay, we're not going to save $1 an hour. We're going to keep where we are because that country has some type of moral issue or ethical issue. So the boards is what I look at, and that's what really gets gets you right back to conspiracy land. Because if you look at Amazon, who's on their board of directors? Perfect example. Trilateral Commission member, right? Bilderberg's right there. So a lot of this, people say, oh, yeah, it's conspiracy. Yeah, well, go look at the corporate boards. And a lot of them you can either trace to the military-industrial complex, Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg's. And, of course, the Bilderbergs funded the Trilateral Commission, so that's not surprising. But that's where we need to start focusing more, is on these corporate boards. And then you'll see the same person controlling, 5 or 6 companies. I mean, some of these corporate directors are on 80 company boards. So there's a real cabal there. But I think you're right. I mean, Obama did some good things. Trump's done some good things. At least he brings the issue to the forefront. And,
right.
So there's hope, he is putting out. But I'm real curious to see this NAFTA, and then you have that TPP. Did you ever see all the signs that said no TPP at the elections?
Yeah. Well, I did. I do applaud Trump, because I did read that he signed, was an executive order, and he scrapped that TPP like a week or so into his presidency back in 2017.
That's correct.
Which was pushed through. And that TPP, without getting into the politics, Obama, Democrat, Republican, it was just a terrible, terrible deal where we're taking it on the nose.
Sure.
The Americans.
Yeah. All of these are one-sided, right? Yes.
Right.
Well,
and one.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Real
go
quick,
ahead.
I brought this up to some people in the 2016 election. They didn't even know about it. They were so focused on this bus video and the Clinton Foundation and Hillary Clinton and whatnot. But this is a true fact. Before Hillary Clinton and former President Bill Clinton took the White House in 92, they don't know what Hillary Clinton did as one of her main jobs that brought in big-time income. She was on the board of the Walmart Corporation. When
That's
a lot
correct.
of unions, and I'm in a union, and they're all vote Democrat, vote Democrat. Well, we got to know a little bit about Hillary Clinton, and was she really good for labor? But not getting into that whole topic, but I just wanted to bring up the fact that is a true fact that she served for a few years on the board there of the Walmart Corporation. And to me, they're one of the worst. When they've tried to unionize those Walmarts, they just flat out shut down some of those Walmart stores and locations when they knew they were getting close to being unionized. How they do business, just how unethical they can be.
Oh, yeah. They're right up on the top. Of course, if you look at the founder of Walmart, that just takes you right to the answer, military intelligence. So there you go. And they're very linked up with the government. You probably should listen to my show a few nights ago, because I talked about Walmart in great depth. So you may want to listen to that.
Okay.
That's true. So Walmart's right up there. And, that's part of the challenge, I think, for everybody is let's identify the top 100. There's probably 1,000 bad corporations. Let's start with the top 100. So we have our work cut out. That's what's not really being done very well. I look at it is from which corporations are loyal to the American public and which are not. And if we could get that list published, then obviously you don't shop there. So it's a pretty simple solution, because that's the way you get these corporate boards' attention. They still like consumers. So that's something we need to do more of. Go ahead.
What kind of gets me, if I can get your opinion on this, is like, you'll have, whether it's Ford Motor Company, let's say Amazon, Apple, whatever the case may be, and they do their yearly earning reports and revenue, whatnot, and then they have their annual shareholders meeting. But it's like, how much is enough? It's like every year it's like, okay, we just went up 23% from last year, and we're looking to make another $300 million dollars or another $90 million from what we made last year, even though the past 3 years they went up in profit. And then, it's like, okay, well, what we could do is we can shift production over to Mexico, or we can send it to this country or that country, or what we can do is we can start getting rid of some employees, or we'll just bring in contract employees without having to pay benefits. But it's this corporate greed, and it's like you're already making millions and millions of dollars, these people at the top. How much more? And it's
That's
the
correct.
people at the bottom that seem to suffer in a sense. But if I can kind of get your opinion on that.
Well, the opinion is it's gotten out of control when the government is in bed with corporations. Again, not all corporations. So just let's say multinationals, some of the ones you'd know. When they're in bed with the government, that's not the free enterprise system any longer. That's called fascism. So that's why they came out with a term to make it sound a little better, public-private partnerships. Yeah, right. It's corruption, and it's they're really helping them maintain their monopolies. I think that's obvious with Facebook and Google and Twitter. These companies could be broken up relatively quickly and broken into segments and sold off pieces so we have competition again. But, they've gotten so involved in the lobbying and the whole cycle. So that's what has to be broken. I think Trump does make him a little nervous because he's a little more unpredictable, although I'm sure he's in with big business quite a bit too. So, but it is a very vicious cycle. But the bottom line, getting back to your question, is we have a problem. The free enterprise system is an illusion right now for the most part, especially at the upper corporate levels, because you have the CEOs are making I'm thinking 523 times the average salary of the employee. So it's way out of whack. It's exactly what you're saying. When is enough, enough? And I think the focus that we have to do, from getting active, is at the board level. The CEOs, to a large extent, are just fake CEOs. They're like the front, and they're out there doing media appearances. But it's the board level that you have to put pressure on, and we need to shed more light on who are these board members. That's the ones that are in the background, and I think that's what America has to do is get a little more focused. And like I say, we can't take on all the corporations, but let's start with the top 25. I'm fine not shopping at Walmart, period, if that's what it'll take. It's just more that they've stopped us from getting organized. So we can, so we say these are the top 25, and we'll boycott the top 5, whatever it is. But each American has to step up and say, I'm not going to buy that, at some point. So we'll see. And it's definitely going to come to a head, and I'll tell you why. Because the governments are, to some extent, insolvent. So you got city-states. They're going to become insolvent, and then the corporations are going to try to take over the states. So that's kind of like Walmart will own Arkansas. You follow me? And then Apple and Google will own California. That's where it's heading, and that's not just me. There's been experts saying that's what's going to happen. The governments will become insolvent, and the corporations will take them over, and that's going to expose this. But I'm sorry, your first name again?
Oh, Ed. Ed.
Ed, great. Ed, you really follow the stories quite well. How is Michigan these days? I haven't spent too much time there, but I've always enjoyed it.
We've been, the city of Detroit, it has been rebounding a little bit. We got out of the bankruptcy, and there's been a little more turnaround with the automotive, and we got the casinos and the sporting venues all in downtown Detroit. That's kind of come back. Ann Arbor's always been a booming city. Flint and Saginaw are kind of still suffering. But one thing that hurt us here in Michigan, and just to show you I'm not just bashing on the Democrats and liberals, I'll go after Republican here, is we had it was 4 years ago, our current governor, who's going to be gone in November, this Schneider, he passed a right-to-work law. Now, I don't have a problem with right to work if it's done fairly. But what happened was when he passed a right-to-work law, which was so bad about it, how it was done, is you can exercise the right to work and not pay union dues, and you're still protected under the union contract, the way it's set up here in Michigan. And the problem with that lies is let's say you get half the employees in ABC Electrical. It's a electrical corporation, okay, doing whatever, making parts or doing service. But my point I'm getting at is, if half of them leave the union, but they're still protected under the contract, it costs money to pay for the union stewards to get involved with the due process. It costs money for attorneys to go over those contracts every 3 to 5 years. The union due money keeps it going. So
right.
if you're going to do right to work, a fair way of going about it is say, okay, if you feel you don't want to be part of the union and forced into it and pay union dues, fine. You're an at-will employee. Go see the boss, or go see the CFO, whatever, CEO, and you're an at-will employee now, and go see them for your benefits package. You're not protected under the contract. You don't want to pay into it, fine. And I think that you would not have half as much in there. But it's such a hypocritical situation that we were put in with this right-to-work law that Schneider implemented in Michigan.
It's kind of a union-busting tactic because there is a law that says whether you're a member of the union or not, you have to get represented. So, why do I pay dues? That's what happens. But they snuck that law in a lot of states. So you're correct on that. But, the unions, too, I mean, they're part of the problem because a lot of times they've kind of gotten in bed with their corporate friends there. So, but I think you're on the right track. And then that also leads you to these corporations that keep their money offshore. So there's another, disloyal, I call it disloyal to America. And it's, I really cringe. I talked the other night about Bill Gates, not to pick on Bill, but he's the one that says he's giving all his money away, and he's still number 2 on the list. I'm like, how many years? It's like 10 years ago he said he's giving his money away. But here's my rub. And he's actually gotten a lot of flack for it. He gives billions and billions to other countries and less to the U.S., especially children here. So, that's a whole other, this is where you get into the globalization. It's more important to these guys than it is, after you make your money off of the American engineers and the American workers and American ingenuity, then you're sitting here sending all your billions overseas. And they say it's for humanitarian reasons. Let me ask you a question, Ed. If I give China let's say I give China $20 billion, or if I'm Google and I'm over there employing and I put $10 billion in employment over in China, I'm still helping the communist government, aren't I? Because that's money they don't have to raise to feed their people. So to me, it's still disloyal, and so. What they don't like is it's becoming more visible now because people have the internet. They can take pictures of their buildings in other countries. They can talk to people. They don't like the flow of information that's kind of showing this disloyalty. But, I mentioned earlier how Ford was connected up with the Nazis. They were disloyal then. Nothing's really changed. Some of these corporations are still funding the enemy, right? And then the next night they'll turn around and say, "Oh, the China's is our enemy." Yeah, well, you're doing business over there, helping them. Go ahead.
Well, two things I bring up real quick. I watched last week that movie Death of a Nation, and I found out this bit of information, and I was just surprised. And I love social science, but Roosevelt supported Mussolini. This was before Hitler took power in the full Third Reich. But see, my thing is, I'm okay with forms of socialism. What I'm scared of is having a socialistic controlled government like Venezuela and Cuba. And the second thing I just want to ask you real quick, if I can get your opinion on, is I found it scary was when I heard that Mark Zuckerberg talk about this universal basic income. I kind of look at it like, okay, then give half of your net worth away to charities and the poor. Then if that, what are you telling me that somebody who's a bum on the street should make about almost 80% of what I make because I went to college and was in the military and I've paid my dues as far as I'm concerned. But if I can get your opinion and on your comments on universal basic income, and if you can kind of talk about the good and bad with socialism and, like a socialistic controlled government.
Well, a universal basic income is extremely scary because it originates from the theory of technocracy. So the Communist manifestos failed, and then they came out. I could give you the exact years, but they came out with the theory of technocracy, which is basically communism using high tech. And that's when they came out with the universal basic income, which I think Stockton, California is promoting that right now to give out like a test. And they're going to give 500 people the UBE, I guess. I'm sorry, UBI. And but this is a very scary foothold. We don't want to let this spread because it's a direct attack on the free enterprise system. You don't have to come up with an idea. You don't have to manufacture anything. You can just sit back and collect your UBI. And it's just another form of welfare because they want that control over you. And according to the theory of technocracy, have you read that book? It's called
I haven't.
Okay. It's called the, what is that? Technocracy Study Course. It's free. It's a PDF file. Find that.
Okay.
You'll talk about UBI. That's where it's coming from. And this is a very scary theory that Brzezinski had it. Kissinger had it. It's part of this Trilateral Commission. They used that exact theory. And so now they're starting to leak that out, that UBI. But really, it's sort of like the New Deal when they started welfare, right? However, any way they can get you on the government take, then they can turn off the spigot. If you don't have the right social scoring on your Facebook post, they'll turn it down. Your UBI will be turned off, and that gets you toward the cashless society, and also gets you toward, instead of UBI dollars, you're going to get UBI energy credits, carbon credits. So that all starts to connect up with the Agenda 21 and that whole picture. But that's a very real book that was put out, Technocracy Study Guide. It kept it really quiet. In fact, I always tell people when they're watching television, they'll talk about UFOs, ghosts, zombies, all this stuff, the aliens, but they'll never say the word technocracy. And that's because they were told to hush it up. There was actually papers telling them to hush up that word. And because that theory they were trying to bury, but it is a free book that's been put out there. And there's a guy named Patrick Wood. You ever heard of that name? Patrick Wood.
No.
He's put out a lot of stuff on technocracy, and there's probably no question at all that that's their plan. It's to use this technology combined with communism. You call it, socialism and collectivism is just one tier lower than communism. So what it all boils down to is killing the free enterprise system. And unfortunately, you've got both parties behind this because they're all working to the same plan. So I don't think it's a big surprise, though, when you look at those sci-fi movies and they're all like, using technology to control everybody. It's not like it's kind of like Brave New World. Brave New World. I mean, that book came out just a year or two after the Technocracy Theory book came out. So that's where Aldous Huxley got his idea, was from that theory when it came out. And that's really the origin. I think a lot of experts will tell you that's the origin of Agenda 21. So it's definitely real, and you can go, look for the book for yourself. And it's all about limiting the natural resources for all the little people, while the people at the top, is not surprising, of course, gives them, all the resources. So we can get into that. We'll probably have a whole night on it. So keep listening because it's an involved thing. But I mean, there's no question that's the plan. So Ed, I want to thank you for calling in. And if you go to our website, thelatenighthour.com, send your email in there so we got you on our list. Maybe shoot you a question or two sometime about Michigan. So,
if I can have one last comment before I leave. I had a good laugh. Sure. When I'll use this as one example, Colin Kaepernick, not on the social injustice, but he came out publicly and he really got people all stirred up. Oh yeah, you're right. when he talked about Cuba having the free health care and the education, and people just sucked it all in because here's someone who's a well-known athlete. Okay, but here's something to think about. I tell people, yeah, there might be some free health care in Cuba, okay, but Fidel Castro, when he was alive, when he needed an eye surgery, he had to be flown out to Spain. So you're telling me in that whole country of Cuba there wasn't one hospital that was sterile enough, good enough, and they didn't have any doctors that were capable and intelligent enough to perform an eye surgery. He had to fly out to Spain. And what is Cuba? Cuba, for the most part, is a socialistic controlled country. The only difference now is Raul Castro and one of the other Castro family members are allowing some capitalism in Havana because it's a moneymaker now. But just something to think about. I just wanted to bring up. You might want to elaborate on that, and I appreciate you taking my call.
Well, I think countries and people from countries all over the world are coming to the United States to get their surgeries done. So it's not surprising. Canada has socialized medicine, and you can get in to see the doctor in about a month or two, as I understand it. Not always, but for many specialties. So there are big repercussions. They've been trying to socialize medicine in the United States for a long time, even before Obamacare came out. But it just gets back to the same thing. The best system, I think, for the people is competition. And I've been kind of upset about the gas pumps because it seems like it's coordinated pricing all around the state. So you go and then they got the same price everywhere. Well, where's the competition? It's so obvious that they're not regulating anybody. So we've got a lot of work to do, Ed. But you have a good evening. Go ahead.
You too, and I just say real quick, one last thought is we might not be able to solve all the problems on your show tonight, but this is how you get the ball rolling. You got to get the conversation going. You got to get the topic. You got to get people aware, and I appreciate what you're talking about on your show here tonight.
Well, thank you, Ed. Like I say, that's what this is about. There is no bad ideas. It's open discussion. I take a lot of calls, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, and that's what's missing from television. It's all gone. It's all scripted. It used to be a lot more interactive, and so it's a waste of time. It's basically worthless. So, they used to have a few of those open forum meetings, but even those I think were pretty controlled. But plus they have what do they have? They have a delay, right? If any actual debate gets through, they kill it on the delay side. So it's too bad. It's unfortunate. But, look at the universities, how they're trying to shut down debate. That was the whole purpose of going to class, right? So you could have these different viewpoints, and now you can hardly say anything. I feel bad for the kids today. They're like, you can't raise those issues in class. Like, what do you mean? So I don't know what the colleges are doing, but they're certainly not, encouraging any open discussion. That's for sure. So,
most definitely. Yeah.
Well, you have a good night, Ed, and nice talking to you.
You too. Thanks.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye. That was a nice call from Michigan, and a lot of good discussion there, and that's what we do in the late night hour. So I encourage you to be brave like Ed. Give us a call at 515-602-9663. See, I'm nice. As long as you don't have any dumb ideas, then you're going to be fine. But no, we'll take whatever you got. Just go ahead and step up to the plate and tell us your thoughts. And I learned a lot from Ed, so I really appreciate that. We also have a chat room at blogtalkradio.com. And guess what? I've been off the air 3 years. Now I'm back, causing trouble. I'm going to be here every night, 7 days a week, because something every day gets me upset. So I like to come here. This is like my therapy, to kick back, look at the issues, and see if we can come up with any solutions. That's what the elite fear. They fear that somebody in the United States is going to come up with a unique, new, viral idea, something that might take care of this two-party gridlock illusion system. So they're real worried, and that's why there's all this surveillance and monitoring. And I'm sure we'll get a few of those monitors calling this show, because I did last time I did this show. They'll be calling in here, and I can spot them. I'm really good at spotting the disturbers, I guess you'd call them. They're hired hands to disturb debate. So I fully expect them to join us here if they're not listening now. And I'm going to grab some more tea and I'll be right back. About a minute.
You're listening to The Late Night Hour with Alex Abrams.
And thank you for joining us. Kicking back here on a Saturday night, looking at the news. Last night I talked to you about the MIT computer predicting collapse by 2030. Should we be surprised the way these greedy CEOs are sucking up all the profits for themselves and sharing very little with their employees? How about a decent wage without laws passed to enforce it? How about CEOs that just step up to the plate and help people? There was a time when both people in the household didn't have to work to make their mortgage or rent payments. There was a time when you only needed one person to work. Let's get back to those times. That's the good old American days, when there were pensions, when there were safety nets, and everybody made a good wage when you didn't have to pay for health care. The employer paid for health care. What a novel idea. Why do we need all this Obamacare and exchanges, insurance exchanges? They were working on those like 10 years before Obamacare. They always wanted these insurance exchanges. And why do the insurance companies have the biggest buildings in every city? So we got to share the wealth, insurance companies. Let's build your skyscrapers a few stories less tall, and let's spread the wealth a little bit. Let's lower those insurance rates. They tried to do basically what they've done with vehicle insurance, with health insurance, force everybody to buy it, regardless how ridiculous it's priced. So now with Obamacare, you could get insurance, and it wouldn't do you any good because the deductible was $10,000, and that would wipe you out anyway. So you were paying for nothing, and you were forced to pay it because if you didn't buy insurance, you had to buy it, or you were penalized by the tax system. So it's just basically forcing everybody to buy insurance. They did that on vehicles. It used to be that driving was kind of a right, but now it's a privilege, so you have to have insurance. You know, flying on an airplane kind of used to be a right of travel. In fact, I think the Constitution talks about free travel, and now it's a privilege. And when you start converting rights into privileges, you're getting back to the king and serf system. The king granted privileges to everybody. Your privileges were granted by the king who walked on a red carpet. And we see plenty of CEOs, celebrities, and politicians walking on that red carpet to tell you that they are royalty, and they will grant to you the privileges they deem useful to them, really, but whatever little scraps they want to give to the little people. It's time for CEOs and corporate boards and all of these billionaires to start giving up their money to America, to the people that built their companies, not distributing it around the world to fight whatever, global warming, medical health for the world, whatever those issues are that they use to hide, that they're really just investing in these other countries so that those countries have another deal on the backside that they're after. So corporate America built the Chinese government up. They built the Chinese military up. This wasn't, the Chinese coming up with these great inventions and ideas. This was the companies like Boeing and Apple and many others outsourcing all this work to China, all this flow of capital to China. They were built up by design. So when you see a president bowing to the Emperor of China, don't buy it. Okay, it's an act. We pretty much own and control China. I'm not telling you this. Experts will tell you this. The real story is China is like a fake enemy. Don't buy into the fear that China's going to bomb us. In fact, we're selling so much property in the United States to China. Heck, they're not going to bomb their own property. So you got to get awake. You got to realize what they're doing. They did the same thing with OPEC. Evil OPEC, raising the prices at the pumps. We were in firm control of OPEC, and we always have been. Well, especially Kissinger kind of helped that. Kissinger helped a deal where the OPEC nations and Saudi Arabia, they give a large chunk, some say 80% of the money from the oil in the desert. 80% of that money comes back to the United States. That's the agreement. In exchange for that, we keep them in power. We keep the royal families in power with our military. This is why your sons and daughters probably shouldn't sign up for the military. You'll be keeping the royal families in power in some of these nations. And, these royal families aren't real nice. When you look at some of the things they do to different demographic groups within their countries, different genders. The things they do is terrible. It's pathetic. And, we're not the only company. You could take the UK and others, but Western countries are keeping these people in power. And I believe in the long term, a lot of this interglobalization, creating fake enemies, I believe it's unsustainable. And it will spiral down the rabbit hole. Sooner or later, I believe the royal family in Saudi Arabia will go under completely. And there's a weird thing because I think some of the royal family was spotted right in that Las Vegas shooting thing. In fact, I think it was a hit on the royal family or something, but I'm not an expert on Las Vegas. It was a very sad event for those Americans who were caught in the crossfire of this event. And just like JFK, sooner or later, the information is going to come out on a lot of these events. And it's not conspiracy theory. It's basically, there's many events they're hiding. They're not talking about. There's no transparency. And I say, hey, JFK, they can't give us the files because it will harm the agents. Well, the agents are like 95 years old. Most of them are dead. So why are they still protecting these dead agents? Oh, they just keep trying. They keep trying to tell us, it's to protect the agents. How long is this going to go? Are these agents going to be like 200 years old and they're still being protected? Yeah, there might be a few around still from JFK, but it's not a conspiracy theory. It's just complete, obvious cover-up. Let's release the files and get it out there and get it over with. It's been a long time for JFK. And I think it's time to clean the slate. Trump promised to release the files, then he reneged just like most politicians. And there's still quite a few that have been kept. So it's pathetic. It's time to clean some of these old issues up. And I think hopefully in the next 10 or 20 years, it's finally going to get the JFK information out. We can always guess who was behind it. But there's something there. They would just release the files. And if they haven't doctored them up by now, you're getting me still frustrated because, every time I forget about JFK, then it comes, we're going to release the files. They bring it up. I don't. They bring it up. We're going to release the JFK files. And then they renege again. It's just they do it over and over again. And I can tell you the 9/11 families, people who have really lost people in 9/11, they're not happy with government transparency. And I did mention the other night that Robert Mueller was the cover-up expert for 9/11, so they can't be very happy with Mr. Mueller. Let me look at the news. We'll take a minute, be right back, and I'll see if there's anything super important, but it's been pretty quiet on the news front.
She says hello. In the sky, a graceful show. Many fall onto their knees. Blue light dancing to be seen.
You're listening to The Late Night Hour with Alex Abrams.
Okay, we should point out that the music for The Late Night Hour is brought to you by the group Landia. And the song we use mostly is called Princess Diana Returns. The song's been for sale on iTunes, but I think a new version is going up soon. So if you want to find a link, it will be at our website, thelatenighthour.com. It'll be there pretty soon, more toward the end of this month. But again, that is the song Princess Diana Returns. Now, in the news, I see that Duncan Hunter, Republican, is indicted for using his campaign funds for personal expenses, and now he's blaming his wife for something. But I guess my point here is there a clean politician in Washington, D.C.? It seems like every day one of them is busted for tax evasion, using campaign funds, sexual abuse, pedophilia. I mean, every day a politician is going down, and I guess this swamp is being cleaned out because I don't know if Trump's doing it. I think they're just getting exposed, and it's just pathetic to see that how many of our elected officials have gone down the rat's hole here. It's time to find good, clean, honest politicians. I'm still hopeful they're out there somewhere, someplace, somebody not on the take. It's just that every one of them is compromised. We've got to either fix the system or find a way to get politicians into office who really just want to be there, want to do good things, and aren't in it for a buck. Nancy Pelosi's worth, $32 million? The other night I said probably a bad thing about John McCain, and I guess that's actually materialized. Okay, so, I'm not going to talk about John McCain, and I certainly would have sympathy for his family, but I'm just going to leave it at that, okay? I called him, I think, the most evil politician in Washington, something to that effect. I stand by those words. I'm not going to elaborate right now. But when we come back in a week or a month or so, I'm going to give you a John McCain night, and I'll take you through all the crap that guy has done to the American people. So I'm not going to say any more tonight. Okay. Next subject. What's in the news? I guess killer robots. The elite is still working on their killer robots, testing them out in China. It's not the killer robots, it's the killer drones. They need these devices for population reduction. We've seen the Georgia Guidestones, and they want, 500 million left from the billions. They're going to reduce it down to 500 million slaves. We've seen their plans. And they're not going to be able to do it with human military. Not only are the human soldiers expensive, they eat a lot. Just look at the police. They got a lot of donut eaters on the police force. That's expensive, okay? So the military, they got those MREs or whatever they call those canned foods. It's still expensive. That's what stopped Hitler. You know, he ran out of money and his troops couldn't get fed and his tanks didn't get gas. It's the money supply. Now, granted, American bankers and wealthy industrialists were funding him, and they suddenly decided to pull the funding. So that's really what got Hitler. We certainly didn't invade and arrest him if he was even arrested. He went to Argentina or something. I think the evidence is pretty good for that story. But the point is they run out of money, right? So what's the answer? What's the answer to human military, who you also have to pay them pretty good to kill other humans? You know, at some point, there's just so many evil people you can find. And so at some point they're going to say, sir, that's not an order I can follow. That would be being a traitor to my country. I'm not going to follow that order, sir. It's going to happen. In fact, I think the powers that the cabal, whatever you want to call them, that want to take over the world, they only have a small percentage of the military that would actually follow them. So that's a problem. So their only solution is technology, robot and drone killers. They're cheap to feed, keep them well oiled. They're cheap to manufacture once you get them going. The future. That's why they're moving out, trying to build all these weaponized killing machines. And we have to stop them. I think there is talk of a law to put a moratorium on any kind of these death machines. I forgot the exact terminology. Just a couple days ago, I think one of the countries was coming forward with the human rights bill. And so we'll follow that story for you, and we'll get more information on it. That also leads us to the Internet Bill of Rights. People have some drafts of trying to create an Internet Bill of Rights, where what you say on the Internet can't get you imprisoned or get your Internet shut down. You might still be entitled to your viewpoints and opinions, heaven forbid. So, yes, I'm following that story closely, and we'll get some more information on that. I believe there is one honest senator, maybe a couple, that will put that bill on the table. Will it go anywhere? I don't know. But I think we will see the Internet Bill of Rights. What's stopping them from breaking up Google and Twitter and Facebook? Well, it's because they created these companies. These companies were not created by CEOs and their bright ideas. I mean, you just look at Bezos at Amazon. Oh, his idea, I'm going to sell stuff on the Internet. I'm going to sell books. I'm going to sell junk on the Internet. Now, is that like a brainstorm? No. The reason these companies take off is because they have received government funding, Microsoft included. Who funded Microsoft? IBM. Who is IBM? IBM is the CIA. They're one and the same. There's a lot of evidence connecting the IBM to the CIA and also to the Nazi regime again. So this whole IBM thing goes back generations, okay? You guys, when you look at IBM, you see a company. I see something entirely different. So these are all extensions of the military-industrial complex. They're not companies, and that's why they're not broken up. That's why they're allowed to have a monopoly. They're feeding all this data, all the cloud data, et cetera, they're feeding it all up to the military-industrial complex. They're in bed together. And so that's why I call these fake companies. They're really just fronts. Don't take my word for anything said on this show. What I'm doing is sharing my viewpoints and opinions and things I've learned. It's up to you to go and vet the information and check it out. For most of this stuff, I'm relying on other researchers and other data out there, and I feel pretty comfortable in what I found, but that's going to be up to each person to make up their mind. I'm just telling you, what rocks to turn over. And you'll see, from Microsoft, the first loan they got was from IBM. What a surprise. How convenient. And this goes on and on. So don't fall for these CEOs. They're just fake CEOs, and they get to a point and then they just have to follow orders. So we have a problem in this country in that the free enterprise system has been corrupted to the point where now we have these fascist private public entities. And in fact, I think Amazon just got a $60 billion contract to house the CIA or NSA servers. So you see, they're all one and the same. Give me a $60 billion contract, and I guarantee you my bookstore will do great on the internet. So it's unfortunate. But at the lower levels, that's where the action is. That's where you might be able to come up with an idea. Your idea might even challenge the markets of the multinationals, and they're going to put their foot down on you. But until that point, you can come up with an idea, enjoy the free enterprise system, and American ingenuity. No matter how hard, how difficult the tyranny is, the control, the monitoring, the surveillance, the crackdown by Visa and MasterCard to tell you what you can't sell. No matter how difficult it is, you will find a way around it. If you apply your mind, the mind is unlimited. You'll have the ideas will come to you to come up with an idea and thrive. No matter how difficult it might seem, don't let my show get you down in the dumps. There's still hope. That's why I do this show. Hopefully I'll give you an idea and you'll launch something, a new product. If it's really cool, make sure you come back and be a sponsor to the late night hour so I can keep talking every night at 10 o'clock and rambling on. I don't lose a lot of sleep on this Michael Cohen and Paul Manafort arrests and convictions and plea bargains and all this Trump stuff. I don't lose a lot of sleep in it. Trump is not a very good person. Neither was JFK. Neither was Johnson. Neither was Clinton. I mean, look at Clinton, Obama. I think to Obama's credit, at least he kept us out of like a major world wars. That's really bad. When you kill hundreds of thousands like the Bush family, that's bad. Okay, there's different degrees. Now, Obama took people out with the drones. He killed plenty of civilians, but he didn't get us into a massive full-scale war. And so in the scale of the most evil, I'm not sure what the list is. We'll have to check that out, put them in the right order. But let me get back to why I don't lose any sleep on Michael Cohen and Paul Manafort. I mean, for one thing, they were out buying like extravagant furniture and stuff. Let's support the American people, and then I'll take that $50,000 dinette table. these people are such hypocrites that it's just too obvious. And so that's what convicted like Manafort. He was buying all this lush stuff and, and then talking the other side, oh, help the people. Yeah, right. Well, you can help a lot of people with $50,000. I could give that to a lot of schools and get some textbooks and help children and do a lot of good things and just eat off a cardboard box. Okay, so that's what I have, right? This cardboard box. So, yeah, if you feel bad for me and you want to get me a new dinette set, just go to thelatenighthour.com. Get in contact with me, and we'll have you ship me that nice table. But, it's kind of like all talk, no action. I want to see no talk from Pelosi. I want to see action. I don't want to see her $32 million home. I want to see her doing stuff for people with her own money instead of telling everybody else, oh, go help the children. That sounds like somebody else. Oh, Hillary Clinton. Now, go help the children. Help the children. Yeah, let's see what you're going to do. And to some extent, that's where I have a problem with the NFL players, okay? It's all talk. I want to see you out marching. I want to see you out donating. I want to see you out doing things and not telling all the others, sit for the flag or do this or do that. Go and do it. And that's where I have the issue is these millionaires telling people what to do, telling the little guys what to do, and they're like the biggest cheapskates out there. So now, don't get me wrong, there's a few good apples. There's a few good apples that do a lot of good work. A lot of football players go to the hospital, spend time with the kids. They do a lot of good work. But unfortunately, it seems like the ones they put on the television are the ones that are just all talk and no action. And so let me get back to my other point here on Michael Cohen and Paul Manafort. And that point being, and Trump, and here's my big point on that. It takes a rat to catch a rat. So we have all these rats in Washington, D.C. You got to hire a rat to get the rats. So I have no problem that Trump's a rat. That's, I think, the whole American people. Like, they don't care what they say about Trump and the mistresses and who knows what else, illegitimate child and all kinds of stuff swirling around. Yeah, it takes a rat to catch a rat. So we need a rat in there to get the other rats off the sinking ship. And the more of them he gets out of there, hey, the better. And then we'll get another rat to take the Trump rat out. So, I mean, that's how it works. What we need, what the biggest key to cleaning our government up is term limits. And if we can't get term limits, then we have to expose the misdeeds of these elected representatives so that they don't run, that they retire, whatever. They get indicted. So we need turnover. That's the best fight against corruption. If certain senators, who I can't talk about, are there for 20, 30 years, that's ripe for corruption. And we need term limits. It's very simple. That stops the globalists from creating these puppet politicians and embedding them for the long term. We need turnover. That's the problem with this SES that Carter started. The executive service, senior executive service, they're never fired. They never leave. They're always there regardless who you elect. That was made to circumvent our government. These people need to go. We need to have turnover. We need to promote people from within government, not stick people at the top and call them senior executive service members and give them these giant salaries, which are not even disclosed to the general public. So that's a whole other area that people need to dig into. The senior executive service. And you can just Google all these things I bring up here. And so that's my point on Trump. Takes a rat to catch a rat. I don't care what they print or say about Trump, because that's the reality of it is. The nice guy's not going to clean the swamp. The mean rat is going to be our best chance to clean the swamp because he knows how the other rats think, and we need that. Oh, boy, I'm kind of ranting away tonight. Well, let's talk about our show a little bit. There's a couple things I try to do. Number one, search the web. If there's something, an alert for you, military spotted in Virginia or in Nevada, or something's breaking, I'm going to give you that warning. The other thing I'm going to do is tell you the important news so you don't waste hours and hours reading through all the news. The important stories we'll try to touch on. And we'll get a little bit better at it. I'm rusty, after 2-3 years off the air. Now I'm back to cause trouble. And so I hope you become a regular listener to our show. And I will be here at 10 p.m. Pacific time, unless a social activity or something, somebody invites me to do something. Then I might skip a night. But generally I don't, because I'm so frustrated by the news that 10 o'clock is my therapy hour. In fact, I schedule it for 2 hours. If I'm really upset, I might run 2 hours. But normally it's an hour and a half at the most of ranting and raving. And the other subject we're going to need to talk about is this QAnon phenomena. And I was going to touch on that tonight, but it's a long subject, so we'll save that for maybe Sunday night. Tomorrow night, we'll spend a lot of time on QAnon and what's going on there. Many of you are probably experts on Q, but let me give you my 2 cents on the QAnon and the latest theories and analysis of Q. And I am not a Q follower any longer. I followed Q for a little while, but I'm not a Q follower, if you're wondering. But I think it is an important subject we should touch on. And so we'll save that for tomorrow evening. So again, we've been off the air 2 or 3 years. We're back. I really appreciate you telling people about our show and our live call-in number and our chat room. And this is supposed to be a participatory show, so we hope you bring your ideas and theories and questions and that we engage here. And Blog Talk Radio is really a great platform. It helps us record our core show, and then we can distribute that to all kinds of channels. So if I'm pulled off the air here, I pop up over there. And so that's why you want to get on our mailing list. Make sure that you get on our mailing list, and we can keep you informed of where we're broadcasting in case the powers try to pull the plug on my political views. Well, again, when I was a young person, I had different views. And as you get a little older, a little wiser, a little more experienced, I think I've gotten a little more cynical, but a little more practical, too. I still believe that America is the best place, the best country. People are trying to get in here. The elite built America, and now they're mad they built it so freely with so many rights and liberties. Now they're trying to take it all back. It's like the toothpaste is out of the tube. Now we want it all back. We didn't mean all those rights and Constitution, and you can't defend yourself. So they want it all back, and it's up for you and I to stop them. And we outnumber them, 10,000 to 1. So let's not give up hope that we can't save this country, and we can fight off the global tyranny for another 1,000 years. So join me in that effort. I'd love to hear from you, and you have a great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow night.
You're listening to the Late Night Hour.